Okay, so this is one reason why I do not like Android right now.
Seriously reduced. More than 1 in 6 people aged between 15 and 24 have had to stop work.
Oh, you can't make it stop talking.
Yeah.
By an average of 23%. And the ILO analysis shows many young people
So we'll do this.
formal and low-paid jobs.
The European Commission has also been focusing on the economic
3,
pandemic with plans for an $800
2.
million package of grants.
You know, there's a way to solve that when I can't make it not talk. Aside from restarting my phone, I could install something like Button Mapper or something again. I tried to get away with not using it. Or
Sorry to interrupt, but it's time. Damashe and Michael, just talking tech.
Chrome on the Mac has this very strange behavior for me in Catalina. I'm on Catalina 10.15.4 at the moment. I'm on whatever the latest version of Chrome is. But this bug has existed for me since I upgraded to Catalina, maybe 6 weeks ago. Whenever opening a new window, Voiceover just continuously reads the entire page unless I hit, the control key to shut it up. But it wants to read the entire page. Now, there is a setting in Voiceover's utility and web behaviors that would say read a web page when it loads, or it'll start reading from the top. Kind of like the old behavior JAWS used to have. I think JAWS may still have that option, but it is an option. You turn it off. I tend to turn it off because I don't want you reading everything right away. But this happens even when I first launch Chrome. So if I launch Chrome just like I just did, it starts reading everything on my default landing page. And it's like, I don't understand why this is happening. Now, this is not happening in Safari. And I have been able to confirm that this also does not happen in Brave browser, which is Chromium based. But it does happen in the Chromium browser, which is sort of like the beta build of the underlying browser for Chrome and the rest of them. It happens in Chromium, it happens in Chrome, it happens in Chrome Canary. I have not tested Edge, but it does not happen in the Brave browser. And for those wondering the reason I didn't just keep using the Brave browser when I figured out it wasn't behaving against my will, is because it crashed. As it always says, it just crashed when I was trying to select some text. I hit like VO-Shift-C to copy the last utterance, and then it just disappeared right out from up under me. I was like, nope. So it's really annoying with Chrome dealing with this problem.
Does it happen when you open new windows or just new tabs?
It happens when I open the windows, new tabs.
Anything new.
We do a new tab. Yeah, as soon as the page finishes loading, it starts reading. I just opened up a new tab.
Drop Google Chrome team feedback.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about. Yeah, I should do that. You're right. I was like, how do I explain? Like, your browser is doing weird shit.
Yeah. Well, just reach out to him and be like, hey, so when I open a new instance or tab of your browser.
You know what? Yeah, I'll do that. But you know what I can actually do? Because Catalina does have this nice handy screen recording feature. I can actually record that process of it happening in Chrome, not happening in Safari. And I guess Brave might still be installed. I can show them that it doesn't happen in Brave.
Yeah.
Now, I would actually prefer to use either Google Chrome or Chrome Canary or just Chromium itself rather than use Brave, because Brave still crashes randomly for no reason that I can discern.
Yeah.
Because if I do the exact same thing in Chrome, I'm fine. I know people like Edge. Edge is kind of seeming to be on the rise a little bit. I'm not super fond of a couple of things about it. Don't ask me what they are. I don't remember at the moment. I just know it's like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm going back to Chrome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cool.
It's the little things. Flexible web for me, not being on Edge yet. But I'm going to a webinar tonight with Freedom Scientific, Vespero, and we'll see if they have anything to say about that. So you joined the meet with Safari.
Yeah, I did. So I jumped in Safari because I've been meaning to test this, because in the past, Google Hangouts, as it was Hangouts before, did behave very strangely in Safari. Some people would say that they couldn't get audio working, and there was one point in time where it just wouldn't work at all because Safari wasn't really supporting WebRTC. directly. So I decided today, since you actually sent me the Chrome link, sent me the Meet link, I was like, well, I'm just going to click on it and let it open in Safari and see if it works, because I've been intending on testing it to see if it works at all. Because for some people, their resistance to using Google Meet is not because it's Google Meet, but they don't want to use Google Chrome. So I was like, let's try it. And it seems to be working fine.
So the issue that I have when it comes to Google products or web products in general is I haven't found a consistent way to figure out if I need the virtual viewer with JAWS on or off, for example. So when I was creating the Google Meet, if I had the virtual viewer off and I tabbed, I got an edit box asking me for the name or code of the meeting. And when I had virtual viewer off, all I heard is 50 characters or less. And then when I had virtual viewer on, it said, please enter a name or code for this meeting. So it was giving two different messages. And then I suspect you may know this, but turning virtual viewer off within the meeting gives me a more tabular experience. So I can tab through items, use the down arrow to drop icons down and stuff. But you get more information while setting it up with virtual viewer on, and you have a better experience within it with virtual viewer off. So it's one of those things that I should provide some feedback to the Meet team. That was the only feedback I had right away on getting someone in. And then when you joined, it popped up and had a little dialogue when I figured out what JAWS was doing. I pressed tab to allow. It made sure to tell me that you were not part of the your own pay domain. And then I hit allow in or admit. I could have blocked you from entering too. And now you're in here and I can tab through and see different icons on the screen.
It looks pretty much the same way it does in Chrome. I can navigate with VO arrow keys or tab through the interface. But I do feel your pain when it comes to web applications, because oftentimes the behavior in them is so different, even sometimes from screen to screen. Sometimes I find myself in a web application having to tab. Like I don't have an option to just use the VO and arrow keys to move around. I have to tab to get to certain things, or just use the arrows by themselves, like up and down arrow to move. Lynda.com, for example, like a lot of the courses there give you exercise files. And originally when I started using lynda.com, I was not able to see those exercise files, to link to download those exercise files at all in any browser with the screen reader. I reached out to them, and their solution at the time, while they tried to work out, have their engineering team work out the issue and fix it, was to email a customer support rep. That gave me a direct email for her, and she would go download the files for me and then send them to me. Which, it was a nice response, I think, but for me, it was annoying because it's like, man, it might be 3 o'clock in the morning. There's no telling what time I might actually want to look at these files to do something, and I didn't plan ahead. What I figured out, which is a whole different conversation, was using the developer tools to see the page, view the page source, and then searching for what I figured out was the kind of string that would be always there for downloading exercise files. Locate that, copy the link that item was pointing to, and then pasting that into the browser and hitting return to load that page effectively, which would trigger the download. That was not fun either. Recently, going back to lynda.com to pick up some things, I figured out that I still can't see them if I just navigate normally. But if I use my arrow keys starting at a certain point on the page and use my arrow keys to arrow down, the fourth arrow down will have me on the exercise files, and then I can either move my mouse and click, or I think hitting return also will trigger the download. So, which is very, very strange behavior.
So I need to try lynda.com out because I've been meaning to, but haven't really thought of anything that I wanted to check out there. So I will figure out what my experience on Windows is.
Yeah, you should give Linda a try, man. Just search for something you're interested in learning more about. Like, I'm pretty sure, I mean, they got SEO stuff. You might want to, dig into what's new there. I mean, there's tons of stuff. And the thing is, like, some people use it and actually go through each individual course that they take, start to finish. And some people kind of do what I tend to do a lot of times, which is jump in, search for something, or go to a series, specific course, and look for the thing in there that I need to learn about, the thing I need to know, and watch those videos and practice and test, and like, okay, I got it, and then go on about my day. But it is pretty good.
And what type of lessons do they have on there? Just everything?
Pretty much.
Or is it just tech related?
It's everything, man. They got stuff on there on business management, people management, time management. They got some new stuff up. I don't know how. I don't know if it's new in the sense like it never existed before, or they're just updating stuff. But they have stuff on there about working from home. There's all kinds of stuff.
Okay, I'm gonna. And you, from what I understand, most of your libraries, or a lot of your libraries, will give you access to some of the material for free.
Yeah, most of the libraries that I have checked. It's always good to just check with your local library. Is they will, if you have a library card, you can go register for lynda.com for free and have full access. There's no actual restrictions on what you get to access. What I had to do in my case for the Tuscaloosa Public Libraries, I went and got a library card, and I couldn't figure out how to actually sign in as a patron on the app. But what you do from their website is there's a link that says sign in with your organization or company or something like that. You click that link, and basically you're going to type in the URL that will take you to your public library's website. You type that in, and then click next, and then as long as you have set up an online account with your library, so that means you, in my case at least, my library card number is my username, and then I had a user PIN that I configured myself, generated with 1Password, so I don't know what it is. And you type that in and hit, log in, and there's a little message saying, your data will be shared with your public library, blah, blah, blah. You click OK, and then now you're in lynda.com. And you have full access to everything. And it basically works the same way on the mobile applications. One thing of note is right now, library patrons are still using lynda.com and not LinkedIn Learning. LinkedIn has a plan that they're working on, or I guess they're engineering the process, building out the actual connections to allow people to use their library login to get into LinkedIn Learning, which frankly, honestly, from a mobile app standpoint on iOS at least, I actually hadn't looked on Android, but I will do that. But on the iOS side of things, the LinkedIn Learning app feels much more feature rich and accessible than does the lynda.com app. I'm not saying that the lynda.com app on iOS is not accessible, but one example of the differences that I have seen is in the LinkedIn Learning application. So Lynda, or LinkedIn Learning as they're mostly called now, has learning paths. So they have an entire, let's say web development may be a thing that you're interested in. They have an entire learning path where they start you out with, HTML, then take you to CSS, and then JavaScript, and, build you up on the, like taking a college course on web development, with all their different courses put together in the order that you should take them in, as it makes sense to build your knowledge in that space. And they have many learning paths for different things. It's not just tech related or web development related. In LinkedIn Learning, you actually can see those learning paths and choose one that you want to, start or activate, or at least just browse, which is what I like to do, browse to see what content is actually there. Whereas in lynda.com, you do not see those series of courses put together like that. So you just have to basically search for the thing that you're looking for, or know what the course is that you're looking for, and then go find it. So the LinkedIn Learning app seems to be more fully featured. They are, like I said, working out how to allow patrons to start to log in that way. Originally, the original plan for LinkedIn was, all library patrons would have to get, if they didn't have one, would have to create a LinkedIn profile. And then that would be connected to the library card membership, and then that would allow them access to LinkedIn Learning. The libraries across the country revolted against that idea. They were not interested at all in all of the patrons having to become LinkedIn members in order to be able to enjoy the benefits of LinkedIn Learning. They felt it was completely unnecessary and would be sharing data that people did not want shared. And because LinkedIn can be a little bit of a bitch when it comes to configuring your settings and what's public and what's not, especially if you are a brand new user that has never touched LinkedIn before. The risk was there and is real for people to be sharing data that they had to give LinkedIn in order to create an account with the public when they did not intend to. So I completely see their point. Now, for me, I was like, well, man, I don't care. Just give me access to LinkedIn Learner because I already got a LinkedIn account. But I see their point and do actually agree with them for the overall general public. If you're not a LinkedIn member, you should not have to become one. Linda backed off, or LinkedIn backed off on that idea. So it's like, okay, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is build in special access for library patrons so they'll be able to connect directly to LinkedIn Learning without having to have a LinkedIn profile. That has, of course, delayed that transition over from lynda.com to LinkedIn Learning for people using the library service to gain access. But it's a great service. I appreciate that it exists, and I'm looking forward to actually being able to just get into LinkedIn Learning directly.
So I will check that out, and I put a link in the show notes at yourownpay.com/DM47 to a blog post they created that has free courses to help people through the times we're in right now. So might be a good way to check it out if you can't get into LinkedIn Learning with other free courses. I'm not sure if they offer those.
They tend to have some free courses here and there that you can get access to, or at least they'll give you the first couple, modules in a course free or something like that. Also, for anybody just really interested to poke at it, that just to poke around, I believe you still have to have a LinkedIn account, but you can get a free 30-day trial of LinkedIn Learning.
So do you listen to that Blind Tech show on blind abilities?
I do not.
Should give it a listen. Serena, Brian, and Jeff. I had to write their names. That's why it's in there in Google Docs, so I didn't forget them, because I'm horrible with names. I don't know if you've ever realized that, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have.
So, Serena, Brian, and Jeff released a latest episode. If you go to the show notes, you'll be able to click on the Blind Abilities podcast under the resources heading, and it'll take you to the exact episode I'm talking about, because Jeff's got a lot of content over there. I need to reach out to him. I keep saying it and meaning to, and I just haven't done it because I keep getting distracted. So put that on my to-do list for in the next week. Anyways, I like their ability to build an engaging episode. So it's not just people talking and blah, blah, blah. They're real with each other. I don't know how to say what I'm saying. It's nice to see the authenticity of other blind individuals and realize that they're not as a lot of people are portrayed as. Does that make sense?
Camaraderie is the word Mike was trying to come up with here, I believe.
So which iPhone are you on?
I am on the iPhone 8 at the moment, yeah.
Have you been looking at the SE 2020
I'm interested in probably trying to get one for my mother. I personally don't want to go to that phone myself because I would like to actually move up to like a 10, 11, something with Face ID. Because I'm not married to the home button at all.
Which phone does your mother-in-law have?
My mother-in-law has the original SE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I don't know what the trade-in value for that is, because we looked it up, and Nicholas's phone has been having a little bit of problems, so we're thinking about upgrading him this year, but we're not sure. That's going to be, instead of the $399, it's $271 if you turn in an iPhone 7. So it might be worth looking to see if there's any trade-in value for that device.
Yeah. But I mean, I have looked at it. It is a very interesting phone. Is my thing is like, apparently they really thought it out. Like, they didn't just put something together and get rid of it. They really thought it out in a sense, because they made sure they put in the most current generation Apple processor at the time. They're doing some tricks with the camera so that people still get portrait mode. And from what I've heard from teardowns, they say that camera in the SE 2020 edition is slightly better than the one that is in the iPhone XR, which is the phone that Tia actually has right now.
Oh. Maybe she could trade that one in for the SE 2020 and get a better camera.
I think she's going to give up on Face ID, bro.
Yeah, I imagine not. Once you start using it, it's nice to have.
Although the interesting thing that's been coming up a lot since COVID-19 and people having to move around and wearing masks is that, obviously Face ID does not work with a mask on. It kind of reiterates the need for... I have always liked the idea of the rumors that keep floating around about Apple phones, that Apple is going to release a phone that is going to have both Face ID and Touch ID. I've heard...
Now would be the appropriate time to do that this year.
Yeah, it would be. And I've heard two different versions of what this phone would look like. One is it would have Face ID as it does now, and the Touch ID will be the under-the-glass Touch ID that a lot of Android phones have. If that is the case, if that's Apple's plan, I do sort of understand seeing some of the newer Android phones come out with under-the-glass Touch ID or fingerprint recognition.
Mm-hmm.
The horribleness of the experience, I can kind of see why Apple has not yet released that feature, because apparently it's not nearly as accurate as actual buttons have been. And there's a lot of ways to trick it or get false positives or just have it fail all completely. So it makes sense as to why they have not released that, if that is the plan. One rumor I heard, and I only heard this from one place at one point in time, sometime last year, which is the phone that they were working on that was going to have Face ID and Touch ID. They were going to put Touch ID in the side button of the iPhone as opposed to putting it under the screen. And I was like, that's interesting. I'm not sure how you make that button big enough to be a good enough sensor to be a Touch ID, fingerprint recognizer, but it's interesting nonetheless. But yeah, I would actually like the option for both. I know some people feel like it's unnecessary because, well, if you got one, why do you need the other? And it's like, well, right now is a perfect example of why you need both of them. When you're in your house, Face ID is great. When you leave your house, you're not so much.
And if you're blind, you can unlock your phone in your pocket.
This is true. This is absolutely 100% true.
So I've been playing with action blocks a little. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, you told me a little bit about action blocks. I have not actually followed up on those. So tell me and everyone listening what action blocks are.
So two things, and I'm going to make a quick side note because that's what we do. In the latest All About Android episode, they were talking about action blocks, and Flo had some issues trying to figure out how to best explain who it could help, so I will share my thoughts about that. And then they also mentioned Toggle as one of the apps in the App Arena, and that is an app that I mentioned a couple weeks ago on AMI, which is pretty amazing because the developer is willing to do what they need to do to make it more accessible. So if you are on Android looking for an app to track time, check out Clockify, and I'll have a link in the show notes. So in the with the Action Blocks app, which was released on Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which was the Thursday before we were recording this, Google made an announcement of a couple different apps, and the one that excited me the most, and at first it didn't excite me. I was like, oh, okay, that's an app that I don't really need, was the Action Blocks app. And the best way I can explain Action Blocks is that it's a app that you go into, you can click on Create New Action Block, and then you can either speak to your assistant or you can type in the command that you told your assistant. Then you choose a picture to represent that command, which doesn't do me any good, but it would help other individuals. You type a quick label for the name of that, and I'll go through an example of this here in a minute. And then you hit Add to Home Screen, and it will automatically add it to your home screen, and then open the Google Pixel default launcher just at this time. So if you're using an alternative one and you're like, this doesn't look right, hit your home button or perform your home gesture or do whatever you need to do to get home. You'll go back to your main launcher, and then for me on Lawn Chair Launcher, it added it to the 4th page. And then when you tap that, it will open the Google Assistant. TalkBack needs to speak a little bit less during that because it reads Google Assistant like 2 or 3 times. And then it performs the command that you typed in or spoke while creating it. Now, you can also set up routines inside of Google Assistant. I believe that's what they're called. And a routine will let you perform multiple different items at once. Before I got into a different workflow, I had a good morning routine, and I also have a good evening routine, and I don't remember the good evening one because good morning is always what I think of when I set it. When I think of a routine, so I already set that one up to see how it worked. If you tap on good morning, it'll unmute my phone, and then it will tell me what time it is, what the weather's like, and it will then start playing some latest news. And one of the advantages of this versus saying good morning is maybe you just got up and there's other people sleeping. You just tap that good morning routine right there on your home screen with action blocks, and it will run, and you can have it be silent, or I like it talking to me. Now, I always have Bluetooth headphones connected, so when I hit that good morning, it runs through my good morning routine, and that's all I have to do. And I just set this up today, so I need to go in and reconfigure my good morning routine because my lifestyle has changed.
Gotcha.
Kind of reminds me a little bit of Shortcuts on iOS.
Yeah.
But it's limited to what the assistant can do.
Yeah, that's what I remember you kind of telling me. And I was kind of, chatting about it a few days ago when you telling me. And he's like, pinning it on your home screen is kind of like the whole idea of pinning a shortcut to your home screen on iOS. It's nice that they're building out their own solution. So would you say that it's a simpler process than dealing with something like Tasker?
To set it up, yes, because you're setting up the actions you want it to perform within the assistant, and they've kind of made that to where you could do most of it by voice. So you should already know what you want to happen. I'd like to chain a couple of commands together, which you can with routines, and I haven't played with that, like how much you can do with that. And of course, the difference with Tasker is you can control the device at device level, whereas Assistant can only control assistant items.
Right.
I don't know if like Assistant can turn off Wi-Fi or, it might be able to. I'm not 100% sure.
I was going to say, let me check very quickly, but I think I turned off the assistant because I was talking to you about something with Google, and it just decided it was going to listen. And I was like, yeah, so you got to go. Yeah, but I was just thinking, like, if Google continues to kind of add on to that, as well as adding more assistant features in the future and continues to build that out, could it be a comparable or at least a reasonable alternative to Tasker for a lot of people who don't need the stuff that Tasker can do at its very high level? They're just looking for some basic automation stuff, whereas Tasker is really kind of, Tasker can be a beast.
It can, as long as they can use, touch to touch the icon, or they can use voice control. And so if they can touch or speak or interact with that icon, then yeah, I think it would be a lot easier for individuals coming to Android. And I mean, we have an event on June 3rd, so what more, if anything, will the assistant be able to do with Android 11 too?
Right.
I've been focusing on the multi-touch input, but I'm thinking now with action blocks, well, what else can the assistant do? And they are pushing for on-device processing, so it should even speed up that everything you can do with it.
Yeah, that brings up a point for me because I have noticed, and I I don't follow all of the Android stuff like as far as the blogs and stuff go, so I don't know what like 9 to 5 Google is saying or stuff like that. But I do listen all about Android. I am on the list here and there, and of course I'm talking to you. But I don't necessarily think Android or Google gets enough credit for what they have been trying to do for the past 5 years at least with Android, which is they are trying to make it more secure. I hear a lot of people still today in 2020, bring up the points of the bifurcation of Android because you got so many different versions that are actively running on devices, which is a problem. It is an issue. But it is seeming to me to be getting better as newer devices come out that start at, let's say, Android 10, and they're going to get 11, and they're going to get 12. Now, you do get some manufacturers that say, oh, we're going to provide 2 years of updates, and then that's it, we're done. And Apple has a longer track record of supporting older devices longer. But Apple also has the advantage of having built their model to support that from the beginning. They're not trying to retrofit it, and they're also in control of the entire process. Like you can only get the iPhone from Apple. There's not a Samsung version or a LG version out there. Also, Google. But one of the ways that Google has tried to address that issue is by moving a lot of the components for the system that need to be updated. So security patches, things like that have been moved into Google Play services, which means they can update those on a device that may not run Android 11, but they should still get security patches through Google Play services that will ensure that holes that were found in Android 10 or Android 9 are not going to, still affect those people and leave them vulnerable. And then trying to move, more of the assistant stuff to on-device processing, is to me kind of another step in removing so much of their reliance on the cloud, which they are good at the cloud. Like they are, that's what they are. Like they are a cloud company. Unbeknownst to a lot of people, they power a great deal of the internet. Like people, it's kind of like Amazon though. Like a lot of people know Amazon for the storefront, right? Nobody really, your average person doesn't really know about AWS and how much if AWS was to shut its doors tomorrow, the internet would be over. Like no Netflix.
At least a third of it.
Probably a little bit more than that.
Right.
To be quite fair about it. But the third that people cared about anyway. But Google is huge in that space, not just in providing the infrastructure stuff like AWS, but the computing power that Google has managed to build server side for itself, because they build their own custom servers. Like they don't buy anything off the shelf. They build their entire server stack, which to me is fascinating, right? Sort of like what Apple does with its processors for iOS. Google's doing that for the computers that run all of its services, which is amazing to me. So them shifting stuff more to on-device, I think, is their continued progression towards delivering more clarity as well as more privacy enhancements in their services moving forward. And again, I highlight something that I think a lot of people miss. Apple's always banging the drum about their privacy and respecting user privacy and their security. But Google is, out of the two of those, you would say, well, Google, has more data. They collect more user data, which they do. They don't sell it to people. They sell their knowledge of what, said buyer is looking for. They're not actually handing over your data, which is a point that always makes me mad when I hear people, misrepresent the business model of Google. It really takes me off. But between the two companies, Apple and Google, Google is the only one that gives you a way to securely encrypt your backups for your phone before they go to Google's cloud. So Google cannot poke at your backup themselves. They cannot retrieve your backup if you choose to encrypt it. Whereas, famously, Apple, of course, can at this point decrypt your iCloud backups. There are some areas of your iCloud data that are encrypted and hidden away from Apple that they cannot access, but your typical backup data, which will probably dump, a ton of stuff out of your phone that could be helpful for somebody, they do have access to that because they have been consistently with a warrant turning that information over to the FBI and other law enforcement agencies. Again, they do require that people have a warrant and not just selling it out the back door. But they're able to comply with that. Whereas Google, again, if you choose to set yours up to be secured, encrypted before leaving your phone, Google can't turn over that data to anyone because they don't have, well, they can turn it over to them. It just won't be much use to them. And again, I always feel like Google has been making strides with accessibility, which they've, for a long time in the blind community gotten a bad rap about. And they're making strides on, one, clarifying what they do with your data, their data management policies, which is good because a lot of people don't want to read 10 pages of legalese to figure out, oh, they're not selling my email address. They're just telling somebody, hey, I know who wants to buy that stuff. I will email them myself. But they're also making, strides towards improving and enhancing user privacy and user security on devices as well as with their services as well. And like I said, it pisses me off when I hear people say otherwise or imply otherwise, especially when it's a person that is in a position to say something that hundreds of thousands or millions of people are going to hear, and then they've misrepresented what the actual facts are.
But Damashe, iMessages is secured end-to-end and Google Messages isn't. Well, actually, I do listen to 9 to 5 Google, and there are rumors of Android 11 bringing secure messaging to those providers who are supporting RCS or rich communication services. And they did announce, well, T-Mobile, this is creative, and I got this from All About Android. T-Mobile made the announcement that they were the first to support RCS fully on their network. Well, actually Sprint was, but now that T-Mobile owns Sprint, T-Mobile can say
yeah, they got it by proxy. We bought the company that did it first, so yeah, we did it first.
Yeah. Welcome to America.
So I do want to address something that you said right there, though, because see that's another one of those pain points for me when it comes to the privacy and the security and all of that that people hold Apple in such high regard from. Not that they don't deserve their reputation, but iMessage is a perfect example. iMessage is not encrypted. I mean, it is encrypted. Excuse me. iMessage is encrypted end to end, but you're not managing your keys. Apple is. So as I point out to people, Apple could totally, now they probably would not ever do it without some type of a warrant. And I would want to believe that they would vigorously fight against doing this. But it would be possible. That's the only point I'm trying to make. Not that they have done it, because there's no record, there's no indication whatsoever that they have done this. See, I'm being very clear about what I'm trying to say versus a pundit who just spit some shit out and then 1,000 people. This is why you should listen to our show, because we try to give you the facts. We don't just make up shit or say what sounds good. There's no record that Apple or indication that Apple has ever done this, but the possibility exists. As of iMessage, the way it is today in 2020, May 27th, 2020, because they could totally change the shit. They end up June, right? WWDC. Like, all right, so here's what we're doing. But as it stands right now, Apple could insert themselves or any other third party into your encrypted iMessage conversation, because they're the ones who are managing the keys that handle the encryption of the message traffic. That is a possibility. Again, they've never done it to anybody's knowledge. But they could do it. So while iMessage is end-to-end encrypted, it's not what I call, and well, I didn't coin this phrase, so it's not what I phrase trust no one encryption, which means things are encrypted on your device and they're decrypted on the other end for that person, but nobody has the ability to peek into your conversation whatsoever. Signal is an example of a trust no one encrypted messaging service, because you have the message decrypted on your end and the person you send the message to can decrypt it on their end, but there's no way for Signal or anyone else to break into that conversation or insert themselves in that conversation without actually having physical access to your device. And if they have physical access to your device, well, they're just going to read the shit anyway. It doesn't matter. At that point, you got a whole lot. It's just like I said about 1Password. If you get into my 1Password account, the fact that I have some 2-factor codes inside of there right alongside the actual login, you know what? It doesn't even fucking matter at that point because you're inside of 1Password.
You're in my realm.
Yeah, like it's over at that point. Even if I moved all of the 2-factor codes out of 1Password, you still would have a way to probably get back to it. Because guess where I keep the recovery codes? 1Password. Although, if I had have known about this service or this service, sync.com, had existed some years ago, I might have done that differently. As I've set up new 2-factor for different stuff, I've actually been saving those codes in sync.com because, again, they're client-side encrypted. So they're encrypted first before they go to sync servers, which means sync can't hand my data again. They can turn over whatever they want to. It's not going to do anybody any good because it's all encrypted and they do not have the keys. But that is a subtle difference in Apple's iMessage that, again, yes, it is encrypted in the end, but it's not TNO because they could, and again, they have not, but they could do it. And the fact that potential is there means that I don't think people should continue to hold up iMessage as like the most amazing messaging service in the fucking world, because it's not. Like, it's great. It's awesome. It is amazing the way that it works. Now for me, at least, my messages sync across my phone and my Mac and my watch. So if I read it on my phone, I don't have a badge on the Mac, etc. It is nice what they have done. But they have not, and it's probably because of user complexity in the beginning, have not, removed themselves from being able to potentially tamper with that conversation. Signal is the gold standard. It is such a gold standard that WhatsApp switched to using them several years ago before they were purchased by Facebook. WhatsApp actually switched to using the Signal protocol for their messaging. They built all their extra stuff into it on top of it or whatever, but they're using Signal's protocols for their encryption, which means when they tell you your shit is encrypted, it is encrypted. There's no bullshit about it. Even Facebook can't poke at your shit in WhatsApp if you choose to encrypt it.
I'll ask you one of these last questions. Are you doing anything creative with shortcuts on iOS?
Not really at the moment. Most of my shortcuts that I use regularly right now are kind of your basic things. So I have the one that I can run that will put the phone in Do Not Disturb very quickly and all of that, or come out of Do Not Disturb. But nothing super clever at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, I got a couple ideas for them. There's a few interesting apps that have been released on iOS in the past couple of months that give some additional power, I think, to shortcuts, but I haven't really investigated them. So Data Jar is one of those where it will it would allow you to use like a password or any sort of data that you didn't want sitting actively in a shortcut. But you want to be able to retrieve when you run a shortcut. That's one app that I'm interested in playing with, but I just hadn't really found a need for a thing that I need to do just yet. And I'm finding more and more that if I don't have a reason to do something, I'm not as motivated to just go tinker with it to see like, oh, what can I make over here? It's like, I'm not fucking with that wood until I actually need to build a shed, and then we'll see about that. But
what I've got working is working now just fine for me, and I don't need to change shit up because I might break something. Man, I'm really trying to accelerate my
try to shorten the curve as much as I can for learning PHP, because there's so much stuff that I want to do inside of WordPress that, there's a plugin that might do that, but it didn't quite do it exactly the way I want it done, or it's totally unnecessary for this minimal feature that I would like to be able to do, that I know there's PHP I could just write for it, but I want to understand what I'm doing. I don't want to just go copy something from somewhere and put it in the appropriate file for a plugin, or the appropriate, template file for a child theme, and just have it run without knowing what the hell it's doing. Because number one, if something breaks, I don't really know how to fix it. And two, like, I can't be certain, because I don't have that deep understanding of PHP that I'm trying to obtain, to know whether or not this code is in any way sloppy. Like, sometimes I can look at stuff and I'm like, that don't make sense. But sometimes what looks repetitive to me or extreme, like, man, you couldn't have condensed that a little bit more, like, nope, that's exactly how you had to write it. Like, there's no shortening that. There's no condensing that. That is the most compact piece of code you're going to see to accomplish the thing it is trying to accomplish. So I'm not, I'm mostly focused on learning a lot of PHP, boosting my CSS skills a little bit, but mostly focused on PHP. I'm not even really looking at JavaScript all that much because I feel like I need to focus on a language specifically as much as possible to learn it, because once I learn and I'm comfortable with PHP, that would allow me to do my job better from the development side of WordPress. And then I feel like it will be somewhat easier to pick up a different language, because it won't be learning the language from scratch so much. It's like, okay, all programming languages at their core are similar. It's just somebody chooses to implement the way of doing things a little different. It's sort of like switching screen readers in Windows.
Yep.
I think is a good analogy. Yeah, for people who've used screen readers. Like, if you use JAWS forever, you can switch to NVDA, and the biggest things you have to learn about NVDA is how did they implement the functions that you were used to using in JAWS, or how did they implement cursor routing and mouse
and what did they call
and all of that. Yeah, and what do they call it? But the same functions still exist, right? So if you already know, if you know JAWS well, you won't have as much trouble or as steep of a learning curve getting into NVDA. Whereas if you have been, if you have a patchwork of knowledge on how to use JAWS, then, NVDA is going to be a bitch. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be a bitch.
Yeah. So pick one, get to know it, and then possibly branch out if that's something you're interested in doing. Programming by stealth, it sounds like, is going to start talking about PHP.
Yeah. I think they're going to get there eventually at some point, because he wants to eventually get her to be able to write her own theme is sort of his goal. But I also think in the process he's going to be writing his own theme. But see, if you listen to Programming by Stealth, which we shall link to in the show notes at yourownpage.com/DM47.
Yep.
Programming by Stealth took the same approach that I'm trying to take, which is kind of somewhat where I got the idea from. To be quite honest, which is just I want to do PHP first as opposed to JavaScript, which is where they really started down the actual programming path, was JavaScript. Because I don't really need all that much JavaScript. Like, it's handy and it's a good language to learn, because there's so much stuff that could be automated with JavaScript. I mean, Drafts uses JavaScript to do some automation. The Omni apps are using JavaScript. There's JavaScript used in WordPress all over the place on the web. That would probably allow me to do some slick shit with our discourse if I knew JavaScript. But I always think of JavaScript as a client-facing thing, whereas the PHP is what makes the fucking shit load in the first place. Like, that's what I need to really master. Even though a lot of people say PHP is, it's outdated, it's all blah, 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 whatever. I'm using WordPress, it uses PHP. So that's
at least for now.
Probably forever. It's never going to not use PHP. The JavaScripty part of WordPress is really client-side. It's really presentation. That's where most of that functionality is being used. It's like presentation. It's like, I want to display this message, or I want to, not just for that stuff, but, it's more. Whereas the PHP code is what's going to allow me to be able to write my own little plugin that will do all of the Stripey things I want to do with Stripe without having to use somebody else's plugin that may or may not be supported, or may or may not do exactly what I want it to do, etc. Man, Stripe is fucking amazing though, dude. Just as a side note.
Yeah. Especially when you get into developing and looking into connecting it through different means.
Though, like, that's nice. Like, it's always been great for developers, but the thing that I'm liking is, like, they're really starting to build more of a user-friendly, customer-friendly interface to stuff. So, invoices, I think, was the first big step down that path. Was them creating the ability for you to create an invoice from within Stripe. You were able to create invoices and have them emailed and all of that using code, using the API. But now that you can just go to actually invoice.new, create a new invoice.
Yep. I understand where you're coming from because it seems to me more like Stripe is trying to be more of that front-facing tool and the back end, hopefully.
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean, they are like the back end for a lot of stuff. Like a lot of people are using Stripe, and you may or may not know that they're using Stripe depending on how they chose to implement it. But yeah, I'm seeing a lot more front-facing stuff now, where it's going to be easier for just the average person to go set up it's easy, but to actually make use of Stripe. Like, I don't need a plugin, I don't need a developer. I can set up a Stripe account and just start invoicing people. Like, it's not going to be it's not as slick. Like, you would still want a developer or need a plugin or something if you wanted to add it to your WordPress site or some other CMS type system. To make it clean, make it feel like FreshBooks or something. Like, yeah, you need more code, but just for the basics, like, I need a way to send people invoices, and I want it to work, and I want to be able to get paid, and I want them to be able to use Apple Pay and Google Pay. Like, hey, Stripe, there you go. Do you have a smart TV?
Yeah, I do. We have a Samsung TV. I don't remember the model number. It's a 47 or 49-inch TV. I don't remember any of the details about it. But I do know that if you press and hold the mute button for 3 seconds, you'll get a horrible text-to-speech, but you'll have text-to-speech and be able to access the TV and a lot of apps inside the TV. I am considering a dongle. So we have a Chromecast, but Chromecast is a complicated concept to explain to some, that you start the playback on your phone and then you hit this button and you send it to the TV versus you browsing the TV itself to watch something. So I think I'm going to pick up a Fire Stick, or if rumors are true that I've been reading and hearing about, an Android stick if they come out, or something to plug into the TV. I don't want to pay for an Apple TV because I'm not really in the Apple ecosystem right now. So the boys are the only ones with iPhones, but Mallory and I both have Android, so that's why we're looking at those alternative solutions.
So one recommendation would be, don't get the Fire Stick, get the Fire TV. Because you get a little bit more processor power. A lot of people I know that have bought Fire Sticks tell me that they tend to kind of freeze up, and in a lot of cases they're not using the accessibility features built into it. So I think it's just kind of underpowered. So I would say get a Fire TV. Probably in a few weeks, Prime Day will be a thing.
Maybe.
Prime
They're
Week,
talking about moving it to September.
Oh, what the hell?
Yeah, I suspect you didn't hear that on any of the podcasts.
No, but I am a little behind this week, at least, anyway.
I listened to way too many podcasts.
I think the only thing I have listened to this week at all, or anything that's fairly recently new, is Cortex. I think it's the only thing I've listened to. They had an interesting discussion about his Spaceship View video, which we linked to last week. Or last episode. But yeah, not Apple TV. Apple TV is fine. I say if you can catch one on sale, it's cool, because because then you don't really have the ability to control it. You would have to use the remote control.
Right, because I don't think they have a remote.
There's not a remote
Android.
out for Android. Yeah, that's the sucky shit. So I would say leave Apple TV out, because nobody wants to have to deal with that funky ass remote they got for the TV. Android TV is interesting. I really hope they come out with like a new device for that. A lot of people have been using the NVIDIA Shield, which has Android TV built into it.
Oh, I don't know why I didn't think about that. It's been mentioned on All About Android. Like I did, for some reason that didn't even cross my mind.
So that could be a potential solution. Or
time to Google.
Time to eBay search.
Yeah, I think eBay. Yeah.
eBay
Cheaper
has been
that way.
an interesting place.
Has it?
So eBay has been an interesting place. I hadn't used it for a while, and then I recently started kind of getting back into it because I was looking for certain things, and it was like, I'm gonna go check eBay. But I think at least for me, for a while, it was kind of out of mind, out of sight, out of mind. It's like Amazon for everything. But jumping over on eBay, like you find a lot of great deals on eBay.
And you can help small people on eBay. Not small people like physical smallness, but single individuals or a family. Or you can help put food on someone else's table if you go and you shop eBay right, because you're buying something used or something new that someone never used. Like all these shoes Mallory has in this fucking closet. If anyone has any questions or wants links to anything we mentioned, head on over to yourownpay.com/DM47.
At Payon on Twitter, PAYOWN, and I'm at Damashe, DAMASHE. One day we're going to tell you guys to follow us on LinkedIn or something.
Just to mix it up a little.
Just because Twitter's going to get shut down. You ain't heard?
Oh, I heard this morning.
No more Twitter. It's all over.
You've been listening to Your Own Pay Podcast. If you've enjoyed today's episode, visit yourownpay.com/cast for exclusive content and to contact us today. We're eager to hear your thoughts and about how you're making this podcast your own. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon. The Your Own Pay Podcast, yourownpay.com.